Welcome to the lab. This is the Big Scientist channel where we explore the why so you know how. Today, we are diving into the why behind soft, airy, and light cupcakes so you know how to create these treats in your own kitchen. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell to stay up to date on all the science. Now let's get into it. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and get our flour ready for our cupcakes. And for these cupcakes, we're going to actually be using cake flour. And this is the homemade cake flour that you've seen used in our oatmeal cookie and our pineapple upside down cake video. So if you haven't seen those videos, please check them out. But the reason behind using cake flour versus like all-purpose flour is that cake flour has a lower flour protein content than all-purpose flour. And if you've seen our previous bread videos or cake videos, you know that the flour protein content directly results in how much gluten is developed in your end product. And because this is a cupcake, it's supposed to be a light and airy cupcake, we want less gluten development than a bread. So one good way to do that is to use cake flour. And so this cake flour substitute works pretty well just like that. And so I just added my leavening agents and my salt to this. And so we're just going to mix it up to make sure it's all incorporated. And then we're going to set this aside so that we can go ahead and move on to our next step. So now we're going to go ahead and move into the next step, and that involves eggs. And if you've seen our scrambled egg video or any of our other cake or bread videos where we use eggs a lot, eggs have a particularly incredible use in baked goods. They are chock full of science. And here we're going to use the egg yolks. So we're using the egg yolks and the egg whites in this recipe, but we're separating them. And first we're going to take the egg yolks and we're going to actually cream them. So for our cupcakes, we don't typically use a lot of fats like butters and oils like you would in a quick bread such as a muffin or a actual bread. So because of that, we are going to cream our sugar with our egg yolks. And this is going to help create a little bit more air in the dough by poking some holes in the egg yolks so that when we create carbon dioxide with our leavening agent, it can fill those holes and provide a little bit more lift. But majority of our lift is not coming from this. It is actually coming from what we're going to do next, which is with our egg whites. But here we're just mixing up our sugars so that they can dissolve and get into the egg yolk. And we're looking for a ribbon consistency. So we're going to whip this until we have a nice ribbony kind of consistency to the egg and the sugar. Like I previously mentioned, we're looking for a ribbon consistency, so when you pick up the whisk, you want it to drizzle off of the whisk like a ribbon and kind of keep it shaped a little bit before incorporating back into the batter, which is what we're getting here. And so once you get that ribbon consistency, we can move on to the next steps, which will be adding our some of our liquid ingredients, and that'll be some vanilla extract for flavor. And then we'll also be adding a little bit more water just for more moisture. And also we're going to add just a little bit of oil to add a little bit more fat to this. But in general, this is the only amount of oil we're adding. The only fat we're adding is this few tablespoons, which I was mentioning. This cake doesn't really have a lot of fat. So that's how we're going to incorporate more air and whatnot into our mixture by reducing the fat and increasing the amount of eggs in here so we can whip them and add in as much air as possible. So once you've added your wet ingredients, go ahead and just mix it up till it's incorporated, and then we can set this aside and move on to our egg whites, which is really where a lot of the science is actually taking place in this cupcake recipe. So once we have everything incorporated into our egg yolk and sugar, we're going to go ahead and add our flour. And as you can see, it's not a lot of flour. Like I mentioned, we're trying to develop as little gluten as possible in this recipe, and that's why we use cake flour, and that's why we're also really using a lot more eggs than flour. So we're going to have some egg whites, and then we just whipped up our egg yolks with the sugar. So that's we're trying to get as much lift. This is supposed to be an airy, light, fluffy cake. And in order to do that, we need less gluten development and more air. So here you really want to just mix it up just until all of the flour and everything's incorporated. You don't want to mix it too much because, again, we're trying not to develop as a lot of gluten. So now that that's done, we're going to go ahead and move on to our egg whites. And this, like I said, is where a lot of the science is happening. So with the egg whites are mostly water with just a small amount of protein in them. And because of their structure, we can actually utilize the proteins in this to really make a nice foam, because like I mentioned, it's mostly water. And in order to help stabilize that foam, we're going to add in an acid. And here we're adding cream of tartar. You can also use lemon juice, but for this I decided to use cream of tartar. It's a neutral, doesn't really have any flavor, and it's a powder, so it's not going to add any more liquid to our batter. And here I'm just giving a little bit of head start in the bowl by hand whisking it a little bit just until it's frothy. And then we're going to add it onto the stand mixer to mix it fully all the way to a meringue. And what's happening here is as you whip your egg whites with the acid will actually help stabilize those protein structures and help to give the whipped egg whites structure. So when the structure that's provided by the proteins in the egg whites will hold the air bubbles that we're creating by whipping our egg whites. And the more we whip it, the more air bubbles we can incorporate and the larger volume that we can get. We're also going to add sugar here, and the sugar will add flavor and will also contribute to the structure just a little bit, but because it's mostly water, the egg whites, we're going to dissolve the sugar in the water, and that's kind of where the flavor is going to come from. It's just going to be incorporated into the structure because it's been dissolved in the water that's in the egg whites. But you want to add it slowly just so it can help incorporate it evenly, and I just drizzle it in slowly and whip at the same time. And like I mentioned, you just want to keep whipping this until you get very stiff peaks. And what I mean by stiff peaks is when you pick the whisk up, the egg white will, the foam will not like just slide off the beater, and it'll hold its shape. And that's when you know the structure that the proteins have created is sound enough to hold all those air pockets that we need. And all the air pockets we're creating by whipping this is going to give us a very, very light and airy structure to our cupcake. And this is exactly what we need without adding any other ingredients besides just really eggs to our cupcakes. We're able to create a very light, very airy cupcake. It's going to have a nice mouthfeel. The crumb is going to be nice and airy and tender. And so all of this is coming really mainly from these egg whites. And it's just a very simple whipping of the egg white. You're literally just whipping air into the protein web that we have created with the acid. That is actually, the acid kind of in a way denatures the proteins so that they unwind and create that mesh web that you've seen multiple times. Especially if you've watched our scrambled egg video, you'll see how this mesh web is created. But that's what we're using to hold in all the air pockets. And here you can see I lifted the beater so you can see the structure of the meringue, and it's nowhere near ready. It just slid right off the beater. So just keep on whipping it until we get that nice solid meringue where when we lift it out the bowl, the structure will be kept intact. I'm just going to take a moment here to say, if you love learning the science behind your favorite baked goods and understanding how things work and why they work in the kitchen so you can explore and create and troubleshoot your own kitchen experiments, then please subscribe and follow us on our YouTube channel and all of our other social medias so that you can stay up to date on all delicious science and stay in the know of how your baked goods are working, what's going on, and really enjoy and understand that science. So this is what I meant when I said stiff peaks. They can be a little bit stiffer, but this is good enough where we can go ahead and add this into our cupcakes. So as you can see, when I lifted the beater up, it didn't slide off. It kept its shape, and it's even keeping its shape now in the bowl. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to fold it in. So we don't want to knock out all of our air bubbles that we just worked so hard to get. So we're going to add the meringue slowly into our batter and fold it in. And when I say fold, I mean just pull the spatula and literally just fold the meringue in until it's incorporated. You don't want to mix it or beat it because, like I said, we just added all of this air into our egg whites so we can get that light airy cake. So we don't want to beat out all that air. We want to incorporate the air in the batter so that it helps provide that lift that we want, that nice crumb that we want. So don't beat it, don't overmix it, just fold, swipe around the bowl and then fold straight down until all of the white is incorporated. And you're just going to keep doing this until you've added all of your egg whites to the batter. As we're folding the meringue into the batter, you can see how much larger in volume the batter is getting, how much lighter it's getting, and that's all from that air that we incorporated. It's getting a nice light, fluffy kind of feel to it. And just make sure you don't overmix, make sure you don't beat it. We just want to gently fold it in until it's incorporated. Once all your egg whites have been incorporated, you can see just how light and fluffy this batter is, and we can go ahead and start getting it into our cupcake tins. So now I have these cupcake tins here, and you want to fill the tins about 3/4 of the way full. I just used a 1/4 of a cup scoop for these. These were smaller cupcake tins, but just fill it about 1/4 of the way full, and that'll be sufficient for baking a good sized cupcake. So once all of the cupcakes are in, we're gonna go ahead and stick it in a 325 degrees Fahrenheit preheated oven for about 10 to 12 minutes. Just make sure you check them. You want to, when you insert a toothpick in the middle, you want it to come out relatively close to clean, but if there's a few crumbs sticking to it, that's the perfect time to take them out. So here you can see our cupcakes are nice and ready, so I'm going to go ahead and take them out the oven. So here is one of the plain cupcakes I baked. I wanted to show you guys kind of what the consistency looks like. As you can see, it's very nice and soft and squishy. It has a nice little structure to it. And if we cut one open, we can go ahead and see what the crumb looks like. Now, as you can see, it's a very soft and light cake. And when we open it up to look at the crumb, you can see it's a nice, light, and airy cake. It's not dense at all. It's nice and spongy, and that's exactly what we wanted. And that's that's from the egg whites and the egg yolks that we whipped up and got that nice consistency. And here it is, the final result. Some nice, fluffy, delicious cupcakes. So make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more kitchen science. Until next time.